The greater good for who? Okay, what is who? Who do you define as a person? That's what she's asking. And how do you quantify good versus not good, evil? Hey, Reminiscible here. So as usual, I've been wasting my time perusing the internet. And as usual, I'm ranting about my my belief system. So PewDiePie made a video where he gets bashed by a vegan for not promoting veganism, and then so I checked her channel because I'm a vegan. Maybe there's something I'll like, you know, similar ideologies probably. And I agree with her opinions, but I disagree with her justifications because I have a I feel like I have a different perspective. Basically, I feel like she over-prioritizes pollution and environmental sustainability, environmental conservationism, whereas I prioritize more higher expressions of intelligence, such as self-awareness. Like, can you recognize yourself in a mirror? That's I am not a mirror, but if I had a mirror, I might recognize myself in it. That's self-awareness to me. Obviously, you can have other forms of self-awareness. I didn't really talk about split personalities or anything. I actually made the postulate that intelligence is linearly correlated to brain mass or brain size, implying mass. That's not true, but I mean, that's it's an estimate, you know, because I don't have an accurate definition for intelligence. I don't have an accurate definition for consciousness. Artificial intelligence programmers are working on those questions. We have perceptual control theory. We have tons and tons and tons of philosophy on psychology, whether it's armchair psychologists or biologists or psychologists or armchair philosophers. There's a lot of opinions out there, but I think at the core my existence is a information processing neural network. So with all of the I'm functioning with a lot of chemistry and the progression of time, and all of these things are going on at the cellular level, but I wouldn't say that just because something else is sentient, capable of having emotion and feelings, that it has the same value as me. Now my argument, well, I'll play a little clip and then I'll state my argument. Can you guys hear? I don't know if you'll be able to hear. Okay, I'm gonna reiterate. The person she's arguing with in the video who's not vegan is, this pisses me off. The people who try to defend themselves and say, I'm just trying to educate you for the greater good. The greater good of who? Nothing has ever made me want to grill a steak. Now the vegan says, the greater good of our planet that we all live in and share, that future generations will hopefully be able to live on as well, along with innocent beings who have the right to live, and other humans on this planet, when we are taking away their land, that they would use to grow their own food, that we use to grow food for cows, which takes way more land to grow food for a single cow than it does to grow food for a single human. Therefore, that is the greater good right there. I completely disagree. No. That's environmental conservationism, where you basically want to maximize food output so that your little Civilization 6 colony can have... This is a bad analogy, actually. Forget the Civilization game. maximizing the number of animals that can live off of arable land. No, no. Sorry, I'm misquoting you. That's a straw man. Sorry. Forget the straw man. Forget the civilization analogy. I think that it is good that you care about the environment, and it is good that you care about the ecological footprint, but there's sustainable farming practices which don't involve slash and burn or deforestation or salinification or desertification of arable farmland. You can have crop rotation. You can have I totally forget what it's called, but you can have drip irrigation, and it's like the fancy crop rotation where something grows at each season in the year, and it's like I forget. It's like multi-diverse biome. No, I don't know the term, but basically you have crops all year round, all growing at the same time, and like some of them fend off weeds or insects, you know. But that's complicated. I forget what it's called. If I remember, I'll put it in the description. But anyways, how much land you use is irrelevant to the greater good. To me, the greater good, what she's asking you there is to define the greater good for who? Okay, what is who? Who do you define as a person? That's what she's asking. And how do you quantify good versus not good, evil, right? That's what she's asking. She's not asking you about resource consumption, right? Because it's not immoral to grow a farm and then if you plant the crops the next year, who cares? They're plants, right? And here I'm saying if something doesn't have a brain, then it's unimportant, right? So an embryo that has no nervous system, unimportant. Kill as many as you want. I don't care. It's alive, but it has no nervous system, no feelings, no intellect, no self-awareness, right? There's no brain, there's no nervous system. Once it has a nervous system, you can argue, well, yes, it's sentient now. You can also argue plants are sentient, even some stuff without nervous system. Okay, we're not going to get into reductionism because I don't have a white and black definition for what is alive and what is not. And I think my definition of a person does not include whether something is alive or not, as long as it has a brain, whether that's a simulation of a brain running on a computer on a cloud server that's being hosted on multiple processors, or whether it's the jelly in my skull that's somehow having chemical synapse transmitting of information. I forget the biology, okay? I forget the biology. But there's definitely a brain inside my skull. I assert that I am self-aware. And if I look into a mirror, this is, well, I can't recognize myself because this reflection on the water bottle sucks. But there's a mirror right there, and last time I walked past it, I recognized my reflection. Or last time I looked at my reflection, I recognized it. The point is, I can recognize that I exist. So, when I say, what is a person? A person is definitely something that is self-aware, i.e. can recognize itself in a mirror. A person is, if something has a brain, it's probably a person. If something has a tiny brain or a nervous system, it might sort of be a person. And if it doesn't have a nervous system, it can be alive, but I don't care if I kill it because I need to kill plants to survive, or at least buy plants. So yeah, that was my point. That's my definition of a person. Now, good versus evil, well, that's suffering. So I define, obviously, this is going to be biased. I feel this is more objective than the average paradigm, and I feel that Sasha's perspective is more objective than the average paradigm that someone has. Paradigms. So for me, intelligence is valuable and meaningful. Competitive gaming is valuable and meaningful. That's irrelevant to this video, so we're going to disregard that. And Spider-Man, sorry. The pain and suffering are bad. So if something that is intelligent experiences pain and suffering, then the cross product of those two values is the evil. Okay? So suffering over time multiplied by the intelligence of that organism or thing, entity, equals, well, I guess it would be an interval with respect to time. But at one instance of pain, whether mental or physical, if you multiply the intelligence of the organism, which I correlate to importance, with the suffering that it experiences from its own perspective, then that is the evil inflicted. Now, there's an interesting loophole where you can A, just grow stuff in a vat without a brain and then eat the meat because it was never a person to begin with. It was just grown in a lab. And that's not evil. Or you can trick the organism, raise it as a pet, give it a high quality of life, trick it into wanting to die or not knowing it's going to die, give it a painless death, right? A painless life, a painless death, a high well-being, because well-being is the opposite of suffering. Then it's fine to eat that organism, right? So if I were raised from infancy to believe that my purpose in life is to become fat and to become since I'm not fat, let's say my purpose in life is to become muscular and to be politically correct, and that once I'm muscular, then my purpose is to feed a family of, what are they called? Not murlocs. Those things from The Time Machine, the 1895 book by H.G. someone. The ape dudes, right? If my purpose in life is to feed them with my flesh, and then they give me anesthesia or inert gas asphyxiation, death, assisted suicide by my own choice, then it's fine for them to eat me because I want them to. But in the case of the animals, they don't want to undergo the if you're watching this video, you probably already know some of what animals go through, and it's not by their choice. So their well-being is also very low, which implies suffering. And the pain at death, of course, is the violent part that people like to focus on. But you have to do the interval of all those instances of their life over time up to the point of their death, and then subtract the part of their carcass which is sold, and then the consumer. Now, I'm making the assumption that the people harvesting the carcass and raising the animals are forced to do that labor under a very top-heavy economic structure where the lower class proletariat are exploited and forced to do labor not of their choice in order to survive. So in this society, I'm placing the vast majority, for the sake of my argument, let's postulate I place all of the blame on the consumer, me. So when I buy something, if this is going to be numbers out of my head which are not accurate, it's going to be big round numbers, so it's easy. If the 10-pound chicken has a 1-pound brain, yes, I know they don't, and let's say none of it goes to making a pillow, feathers, then you have a 9-pound chicken, and I purchase the 9-pound chicken, then I'm responsible for actually 100% by my postulate of that chicken suffering throughout its lifetime, because I was the one for paid for it to be fertilized, incubated, grown, and all the horrible stuff after that. Well, maybe not fertilized, but you get the idea. Every experience of that chicken which lowered its well-being, I am now responsible for 100% by my postulates. It's an exaggeration to express my point. You can form your own mental model, which is more accurate, and good, do it. Because objectivity leads to objective decisions. So, from my exaggerated viewpoint, if I purchase that chicken, I'm responsible for its well-being in its life because I'm the one who paid for it, the entire process of its upbringing and death. So, but then there's another factor, which is the chicken worth as much as me? Now, Sasha says she's talking about something bigger than all of us. And talking about the planet. I'm not familiar with those terms, so someone please clarify them for me. I don't know if that's like habitat destruction or animals themselves or people too, or just referring to pollution fucking everything up or some sort of all of those three things. But let's skip that. She says animals have every right to live just as you do. Now, I disagree with that because my third factor, or my nth factor, is the importance of another organism's life. And my argument was a human child, virtually every human child, is going to be, their life is less important than mine because, and if you want to hate, go ahead, but as everyone knows, I have no interest in hurting children, just like I have no interest in hurting animals. But the logic is for your sake, because I know that most people empathize with children and their children's well-beings, so it'll make people, because children are inside their scope of morality. Now, I have a different definition of people, so if you can understand how you should treat children, then you can understand how I treat animals, okay? So, to me, or actually, well, not to me, objectively, objectively with the exception of existentialism, okay, so we're not being nihilistic here. Let's have as objective as we can have while valuing our own existence, with the scope of people being everything with a brain, so we're not a utility monster, we're including other individuals in our scope of morality. A child is less important than me because he or she is less intelligent. By the same reasoning, a chicken is less important than me because the chicken is less intelligent than me. Okay? Is that okay? Now, Sasha's argument is the human child is just as important as me. And I say that is incorrect. The human child's brain is smaller, less developed. Its critical thinking skills, its self-awareness is not as expressed, not as the thought frameworks, the very thoughts themselves are not as clear and self-aware, and just there are fewer thoughts on the basis of the brain having less neurons. Or is that true? Actually, that's false. Okay, so basically, my entire analogy of intelligence being correlated to brains is completely inaccurate. So I apologize, that's wrong. But it has been proven that many people get smarter as they go through their growth spurts and the brain develops. So let's say an infant then. The infant is less valuable than me. The infant has about the same intellect as a pig, maybe less. So by the same logic, I wouldn't want to kill the pig either, because objectively it has a similar intellect as the infant. Now, if I ate maybe 1.5 infants or 1.5 pigs, then my life would no longer have a meaning, because I would be evil. So, or my life would no longer have a value, objectively. So that's why I'm misanthropic, because I do place value on intelligent life and intelligent AI, not that we have very many, like strong AI, not just anything that can answer a riddle. So if something can autonomously think for itself and is self-aware, regardless of whether it can see itself in a mirror, regardless of whether it speaks the human language, regardless of how old it is, or what species it is, or what ethnicity is, or whether it's a computer simulation, or whether it's a figment of someone's imagination which is still being processed inside their head, so your imaginary friends that people worship, or imaginary lovers, if they can think autonomously and are self-aware, then I define them as people. And I think that's more accurate than shrimps and infants and adult humans and chickens all having the exact same value per individual for the same subjective experience of suffering, because their lives do have different importance. And I'm being hypocritical when I slap a mosquito because I hate the mosquito, but if I went up to a hyper-intelligent organism and bit it and drew its blood and it killed me, well, I expect that. But what I do not want is a hyper-intelligent organism or AI harvesting my family for their corpses so that it can feast upon their flesh. I don't want it tearing off my limbs and cooking them in a pot of water, so because it tastes good. Therefore, on the spectrum of intelligence, I don't do that to put me in place of the alien. I wouldn't do that to lesser organisms, to less intelligent organisms, to inferior species. If I'm the dominant species, then I don't want to live hypocritically where I don't want a new dominant species to come and treat me as a slave or livestock or prey, because predation is a terrible, predation is the worst thing I can imagine. Well, factory farms are worse, but I can't imagine factory farms, so. And in conclusion, I agree with Sasha's opinions, but I think that she overgeneralizes on some things, overprioritizes some things, and I don't really understand some things she's saying. Possibly because I only watched 1.5 of her videos instead of all of her videos. So, love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Reminiscible out. Oh, and one more thing real quick. Okay, first off, the little alien ape dudes in the time travel machine book, those are called Morlocks. They harvested humans as livestock for food. Popular sci-fi novel from a century ago. And regarding the, oh, well, they will die anyways in nature or however, blah, 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 blah. The animals are going to die anyways, so it doesn't matter if we murder them or inflict pain and suffering. That is a nihilistic argument. I am using the existentialist ideology because it is hypocritical to place meaning on your own existence while using the argument that another person's existence is meaningless or valueless on the basis that they will die eventually someday. Unless you are immortal. But since no humans are immortal, or have the capability to be immortal at present, since I do not know any immortal humans, I take back the capabilities thing, because, cryogenesis and who knows what we'll get with transhumanism, but if you are mortal, and you believe that your existence has value or meaning, then arguing that someone else's existence has no value or meaning on the basis of he or she being mortal is entirely hypocritical. And that's why I said the scope is everything defined with a brain. Some people, when they say, blacks are outside my scope, so, the blacks will die anyways, therefore their lives have no meaning or value, Kappa. That's hypocritical. Then you're not an existentialist, you're a nihilist. Nothing wrong with nihilism, but apply it consistently. Okay, Reminiscible actually out this time. Actually, wait, I lied. If there are any nihilists who are also vegetarian or vegan, let me know how you became vegetarian or vegan, because I really don't understand nihilism. It's very uncomfortable for me to use that perspective.